Isn't it funny how this meme suddenly became super popular?
2 weeks in Boston.
Oh, Leonardo DiCaprio, I love you so much. Well, in honor of that meme becoming so popular, I'd figured I'd talk about this film today. Today we're going to be talking about Django Unchained.
Django, have you all?
Django Unchained, starring Jamie Foxx, is directed by Quentin Tarantino. With the help of a German bounty hunter played by Christoph Waltz, he and Django embark on a mission to free Django's wife from a Mississippi plantation owner. Tarantino is one of my favorite directors of all time, and I gotta say, he is really unique when it comes to his films. All of them have such a unique entertainment value to them, and they got such a charm that you don't really see with most movies. He isn't afraid to take risks when it comes to his films, and his storytelling methods are always cleverly laid out. And on top of all that, his casting choices, along with his directing, can always add to that charm and bring out a unique final product. Django Unchained is, without a doubt, one of Tarantino's best films to date. And with the subject matter of slavery, he's definitely one of the best choices when it comes to telling a story around it. One of the best parts about this film is how accurately slavery was depicted, and I know that a statement like that will be a little controversial, but it's true. And because Tarantino has basically made violence a trademark in his films, seeing him bring that into this era of history seemed very fitting, and honestly, there were a lot of moments in this film that were very uncomfortable to watch. Still, it really says a lot about how nasty this era was to African Americans. And of course, throughout this film, it seems like Tarantino took the approach of showing more of the mental abuse to slaves rather than the physical abuse. Not to say that there aren't any violent moments in Django, and like I said, sometimes the film can get very uncomfortable to watch, but that's part of what the film is trying to show. The actors that were tasked with playing slaves in this movie do a really great job when it comes to displaying the trauma they may be experiencing. Little things such as the soft-spoken voices, the expressions, the mannerisms, and so much more, it really added to that immersion in this movie. And when it comes to the immersion in Django, as he is with the violence in all of his films, I was also appreciative of the fact that Tarantino wasn't afraid to go too extreme when it came to the mental abuse. I know that there are a lot of people out there that had problems with this, but something that's thrown around a lot when it comes to Django is how often Tarantino uses the N-word in this film. In total, they say the word 110 times, and don't attack me, but that feels low, especially for a nearly 3-hour-long film. Knowing the time period that this movie is set in, 2 years before the Civil War, I'm all for the excessive use of the word and displaying the accuracy. This was a really nasty time for African Americans, and all they had to do for all their lives was just endure the abuse they were taking, and the use of the word was really, really heavy. Samuel L. Jackson himself even stated that the heavy use of the word was pretty much necessary for a film like this, and if it wasn't used, then the film would be very dishonest to the era it was portraying, and on top of all that, everything in the film would just be completely inaccurate. Jackson even stated that Leonardo DiCaprio was very uncomfortable with using the word on set. He had to give him a pep talk by reminding DiCaprio that he's playing the role of a plantation owner and that the slaves are his property, that it's basically his playground when it comes to his performance. Yes, I believe that using this word today is highly offensive in every way, but watching a film that's set in Civil War time, I don't think it's worth getting upset over how many times they use it. And no, I didn't live in that era, so I wouldn't be able to see the treatment in person, but based on what we've learned in our history books, as well as seeing other slave movies depict this on screen, I'd be lying if I said this wasn't accurate at all. If you're offended that a movie like this is willing to take risks, just remember that this is our history and there's no erasing it at all. But that's enough controversy for this video. Let's talk about Django as a film itself. As always, Tarantino does a great job when it comes to making an exciting film. The story follows a German bounty hunter by the name of Dr. King Schultz, who has a goal of going after a trio of brothers, the Brittles, to make some cash. Along the way, he encounters a slave, Django, who he brings along to help him. Upon their capture, Schultz creates an agreement with Django to set him free, which embarks the two on a mission to free Django's wife, who is still a slave. The story itself is laid out very well in this film, and it has some great chemistry between Dr. Schultz and Django. Showing the various missions they embark on, they make for a great team and friendship. And while a movie like this would have you hating every single white guy that it shows, Dr. Schultz is the complete opposite. He's the only one in this movie that's against slavery, and he has no problem with letting Django make his own decisions as a free man. And speaking of Django, Jamie Foxx is absolutely amazing in this movie. With the direction he's given, he does a really great job in capturing the portrayal of a slave, as well as being the classic spaghetti western action hero. He has so many great scenes whenever he has to show Django's history as a slave, whether that be showing scenes of him being unable to read, seeking revenge on those that treated him poorly, and even asking if he's able to make his own decisions. He can even have a funny moment or two when the movie calls for it, and it can make a story like this really enjoyable to watch. And I'm also really glad to see that Jamie Foxx is now part of that lineup of incredibly badass Tarantino action scenes. And I would love to show parts of it, but YouTube would end up flagging the hell out of me. Leonardo DiCaprio even does a great job in his first villain role, and being the great actor he is, there's even a scene in this movie where he ended up injuring himself, yet he managed to incorporate it in his scene. Knowing how long it took for DiCaprio to get an Oscar, I'm surprised a scene like this didn't win it for him earlier. But seeing that he's also in 2 of Tarantino's movies, and he managed to make himself a meme twice in this one, that's quite the accomplishment on its own.
I'm bored. This seems like a good bit of fun.
And I know that this is a Tarantino movie and all, but there's some things about Django that I didn't really like. For instance, the story about Django saving his wife was great and all, but part of that story is Django getting his freedom by helping Dr. Schultz. They talk about how it's one of the big plot points in the trailer, but it feels very rushed in this movie, and Django receives his freedom in about 15 minutes. Let me preface this next part by saying that this movie can be very hilarious at times, but there's some moments in this movie where the comedic scenes can really drag out, and one example being when the KKK talk about their masks being on wrong. It's funny for a few seconds, but after a while it starts to get very, very old, but I guess they had to drag it out because they got Jonah Hill to play in this movie. Some of the music choices can also be very odd at times, and it can really take me out of the immersion. During the action scenes, they can work a little, but there's other moments when the characters are riding on a horse, for instance, and they have heavy rap music playing in the background, which doesn't feel right for a Western film. Watching the events that play out in this movie, as well as knowing Tarantino's style, he definitely could have ended this movie on a final over-the-top action scene, and that would have made the movie a lot better. But instead, he drags it out for about 20 more minutes or so, which doesn't feel needed. Hell, Tarantino himself even makes an appearance during these 20 minutes, and his performance is just really, really cheesy.
Shut up, Black. You ain't got nothing to say I want to hear.
It also plays out in a very theatrical manner, but I can't say it's a major complaint, considering that it ends on an epic final note. But despite all of that, Django is still one of my favorite Tarantino films. Diving into the era of slavery was quite a bold choice for Tarantino, but he ended up telling an exciting story that was fun from start to finish, and he turned Jamie Foxx into a great spaghetti western action hero. His accuracy of the treatment of slaves is very well done, and I can appreciate the fact that he wasn't afraid to go to the extreme. The film has some fantastic performances from the cast, the action scenes were nothing but fun, and it had a nice comedic side to it that gave it more entertainment value. I suggest that you don't take this film too seriously because it is Tarantino and all of his films can be over the top in some way, but in the end that's all he's trying to bring you, entertainment. So with all that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and give Django Unchained 8 out of 10 cowboy hats.
Kill white folks and they pay you for it? What's not to like?
I have to admit, we make a good team.
So I'd like to know, what do you guys think of Django Unchained? Do you love it? Hate it? Not care to watch it? I'd love to know in the comments below. And if you made it this far in the video, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this review. Look forward to more very soon. And until the next one, you guys, I'll see you later.